Sayın Bakanım, değerli büyükelçilerimiz, kıymetli basın mensupları ve sevgili katılımcılar, SETA'daki Bakana Sor formatındaki programımıza hoş geldiniz. Bugün Sayın Dışişleri Bakanımız Mevlut Cavusoglu'nu ağırlıyoruz. Konumuz da küresel belirsizlik ortamında Türk dış politikası. Elbette
global environment. Of course, together with the new developments in 2020, Libya crisis, United States and Iran tension, Idlib, and the other crises are on the agenda in the world. As you know, Turkey is in a very active period in terms of its foreign policies in the world and in the Middle East. And together with its firmity and decisive attitude of Turkey, of course, our policies are so clear, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs is a very important person here. First he will actually deliver his speech, and then you will ask the questions to him. I'll moderate this session. I want to give you a brief information about the way we will follow. I'll ask 3 or 4 questions at first, and then we will collect your written questions to the minister. And we believe that the minister will answer all questions you're asking. Welcome again. I would like to invite the Honorable Minister to the stage. Valuable coordinator and president of SETA and valuable administrators of SETA, His Excellencies, honorable ambassadors, distinguished participants, welcome to SETA. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you in this program. I'll be brief today, and then we will proceed in Q&A session, and we will enrich the content of our conversation today. I hope this is your preference as well. I would like to thank SETA for its valuable contributions to the foreign policy of Turkey. We appreciate the efforts of SETA, and I believe they are implementing so successful strategies. If there is unclear issue, or if there is misunderstanding about the policies of Turkey, SETA is spending huge effort to fix this misunderstanding. We are, of course, ministry, and we have official language, and I believe sometimes our language or policies could not be as effective as what NGOs and think tank organizations are doing in this field. So the world is changing so fast. We don't observe it, of course. We are living this change as diplomats, as persons, practitioners making foreign policies. And very valuable ambassadors and diplomats are also here today, and we'd like to thank all of you for being here with us. This change sometimes makes some institutions weakened, and sometimes it may cause some discussions in terms of the perspectives of different institutions. Don't get offended, actually, but there are, because of some discussions in European Union, and we believe that the European Union structure is getting weaker, and because of failure in the policies, the trust against the European Union recently has been weakened, especially in Balkan countries. And of course, there is a very huge expectation to strengthen this weakness, and NATO has also been discussed recently, and NATO needs to adopt itself against new changes, and NATO should have much more active policies in protecting the allies. This is actually the common expectation of all allies, and there are, of course, there are also conflicts and problems, and 60% of the conflicts are occurring in our geography. In Syria, our neighboring country, if you go to south, Yemen, and recently Libya. What's happening in Yemen, we should not forget about the current situation in Yemen as well. And for ceasefire and for a permanent peace, we are spending huge effort in Libya, and there are some fragile environments in Balkans as well. So when we take all these issues into consideration, we can easily say that we are not living in an easy environment, easy geography. So what about the tensions and what about the trade wars between China and United States? How will be affected by these trade wars, and how will the development of the world and of the different markets be affected by this? We organized a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and investors were also participating there, and we discussed about the contributions of Asian markets to the world economy and how we can benefit from this contribution. Of course, there are one-centric steps which will create some potential risks, and we are evaluating and observing all these potential risks very closely. In addition to these points, there is another issue which is affecting the world and which is affecting our institutions very deeply and negatively, and which is deteriorating the common values of humanity. So what kind of steps should be taken to fix this problem, which is terrorism? And I believe we have to admit the truth of the weaknesses in fighting against the terrorism, and there are different dimensions and perspectives against the migration issue. So there are some saying that we should not neglect the humanitarian aspects of migration issue. There are some claiming that this migration flux is creating big problems in the geography. And on the one side, we see liberalism. On the other side, we see different attitudes. If we say that, if we only say that the trade wars are occurring among the big countries. So we are mistaken if we say that, because the big countries revise their agreements, trade agreements with the third countries. Sometimes that could be considered positive, sometimes negative. We can cope with that issue. But how can we get rid of populism illness, let's say? Racism, Islamic hostility, or other hostilities and hate speeches we see. So together with our Russian partners within scope of OECD against anti-Semitism, there was a resolution taken, and we need to add the Islam and Christianity hostilities, because all these hate speeches affect the global wave. We have to reverse this issue, and sometimes we have some concerns that the number of the votes of the populist parties are getting increased. So we have such concerns for that populism issue. So what are we trying to do as Turkey? What are the principles of our foreign policy as Turkey? Peace at home, peace in the world. But under the current conditions, you cannot say only the peace at home, peace in the world. You have to create supportive policies, and you have to create principles. That's why we always say that entrepreneurship and humanitarian policies. So by means of entrepreneurship, of course, we need to defend our own interests. Sometimes as Turkey, lonely or bilateral or multilateral mechanisms can be created in order to create supportive policies. Now, we are members of many international organizations, so we are working on some problems to settle them together. So in order for us to take stronger steps, of course, as other countries, as Turkey, we want to be powerful in the table. What we gain should not be lost in the field, because you gain something in the table but you may lose it in the field. So we should not lose this. And of course, we believe that the stability on the table brings contributions to the world peace. We, of course, organize some military peace or movements. This was not only not because of we had some security concerns in the region. We have also concerns about the territorial integrity of the neighboring country, which is Syria. So it's very important to bring some political permanent solutions in terms of the migration, in terms of the peace and stability in the region. You know, we have been calling Greece and the Greek administration, Cyprus Greek administration, for a long time. Let's share the resources in an equal way. Equity is important. We are always ready for sharing everything in an equal manner. But Greek administration and the Greece always ignored this attitude. And the Turkish Cypriots have always been neglected in the island. So what we had to bring our drilling vessels. We brought them to the southern Mediterranean, and of course, this place, this continental shelf, is the place we have rights on that. We say that we are in the same place. We always defending the rights of this region, of the other countries. We never want to increase tension in the region, of course, and we have to support the decisions which have been taken on the table. We firstly, of course, used the diplomatical channels at first, but unfortunately we could not see honesty from some countries, from some allies, and then we have to initiate the military movement. And after the military movement, maybe 5 days later, we actually negotiated with the Russian partners, with the other allies, and we agreed upon a memorandum of understanding. So that was the way of our diplomacy, actually. So it's an important indicator that Turkey is always open and ready for any kind of diplomatic arrangements. So we were also very attentive on the table in the discussions. Apart from the Greek administration, we had many discussions and negotiations with Greece in terms of the identification of the sea zones, authority zones. So we are ready to have memorandum of understanding with Greece. So we are following the way of diplomacy. Again, I want to reiterate that we are ready for diplomatic channels. Turkey should not be excluded. We were actually tried to be excluded and isolated in the past, and sometimes we remind that such exclusions are not validated because we have the longest border in Mediterranean, and we had so many calls. Unfortunately, we were tried to be isolated. But the equation here is reversed. But we don't want to use this equation against the other countries. Of course, some countries oppose. They have opposition about some provisions of the memorandum of understanding we are discussing. But these countries are also saying that they appreciate our effort. We wish these countries could also share all these things with the public opinion in a frank manner. But the populism I've just mentioned is preventing, unfortunately. In the following period of time, About this field, we will keep spending our efforts. Ceasefire in Libya, peace, and a permanent political solution. These are important issues we are expecting for this region. And the Berlin summit will be held on next Monday. And two leaders, our president and Vladimir Putin, will also attend the Berlin summit. Some countries will send their diplomats or ambassadors, but this is important indicator showing that we pay attention, great attention to the peace with the highest level of participation in the summit. So we will keep spending our efforts. The same is true for Syria as well. When we look at Syria today, both in the table and in the field, we are spending huge effort in the field of combating against terrorism. We don't use any proxy. We don't have any engagement with other terrorist organizations. With a great principle, of course, we are fighting against all the terrorist organizations. I believe no one will try to give any lesson to Turkey about terrorism, combat against terrorism, and about the migration issue especially, because we have been providing humanitarian aids to more than 9 million. And 100% of the humanitarian aids are done through Turkey. We will keep spending our efforts on this field as well, but on the other hand, we have to maintain the ceasefire in Idlib, because there were some tensions in the recent weeks, in the past weeks, and then we want to assemble in a regular basis in our commissions, Commission of Constitution, and of course we would like to give support to Syria to prepare their constitutions. By the way, we are talking about the conflicting parties. Between the conflicting parties, we need to establish a permanent peace for this solidarity, for the stability and territorial integrity of Syria. Astana process has brought so many contributions. We cannot ignore this. We had many meetings in Sochi format, so these meetings played vital role. Between Iraq, Iran, and the United States, you see, there has been a tension, and we spent huge effort to decrease this tension among the countries. We always believe in diplomacy. Our president has had contacts, diplomatic talks with many countries, with Russia, with European Union countries, with this Libya, with so many parties. And I have also negotiated with England, Algeria, Ukraine, Canada, and the Secretary General Guterres and Mr. Borrell and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy. I welcome all in order to be able to reduce the tension. Of course, it's not proper. We are not in any party. We don't keep any party here, and the most important thing is to reduce this tension, and we have to be able to maintain the existing agreements, and we need to be able to eliminate all concerns about safety and security in this region. And we don't want any conflicts, any additional conflicts in this region. Iraq should be able to save itself from this pressure. Iraq has been trying to cope with many problems, dealing with many issues, and we are supporting Iraq for this stability. But of course, this problem is not only between United States and Iran. Between Iran and some Gulf countries, there is another competition, and all these competitions actually harm the stability of Iraq. I don't blame any countries about that, but Iraq is our brother country, so we of course want to see Iraq as a welfare country. So all things I've counted indicate that there are many problems. So we have to be able to produce balanced foreign policy in such a tough geography, and we are not forced to choose any country. We should not be forced to choose a country or any party, and other countries, all countries should not do that as well. Of course, we are ally of NATO and of other international organizations. We are a pretty active country, so then we have to be able to make our relations in a very peaceful and friendly way. On one side, we have to protect our interests, and on the other side, we have to keep providing support to the regional stability. I want to stop right now. If you have any questions, we can maybe move on the QA session. Thank you.
Başlayalım. İsterseniz çıksınlar, öyle başlayalım. Bizim YouTube öyle mi? Şu an kaç? Ha, 1 saat 10 dakikamız var. Tamam. Biraz çabuk olun. Sayın Bakanım, konuşmanız için çok
Mr. Minister, thank you very much for your speech. While the press representatives are leaving the hall, I would like to share the preparations for the first question. As you know, on January the 8th, our President, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and the President of Russian Federation, Mr. Putin, have reiterated about 2 ceasefires. One was the continuation of the ongoing ceasefire in Idlib, and the second was the ceasefire in Libya between the National Consensus Government Serraj and the Khalife Haftar from the Tobruk community. There came an idea of ceasefire between those two actors, and the world public opinion have admired it and have taken up interest in that. It was quite a striking step of diplomacy. However, in the aftermath of that, during the negotiations in Moscow, the outcome that came was this. The initiative of Turkey was successful, and Serraj, Prime Minister Serraj, signed the ceasefire that was prepared, and the other party escaped from the table, if it's right to say. You have been closely following those processes, and we are curious, we are wondering, what is next? Has Russia been disturbed of what Mr. Haftar did in this subject? What will be the continuation of this initiative? Can there be a new activity in Berlin to get an outcome? And what will be the future of Turkish and Russian collaboration in this respect? Thank you very much. Indeed, both in Libya and in Syria, a lasting ceasefire is our goal, and I have tried to explain that. That's what we are exerting efforts for. About Idlib, we had a Sochi motion in the past, and we are bound by this Sochi motion. We have reiterated that several times. The problem here is that the regime, instead of a political process, they believe in a military solution. And with respect to the future of Syria, this is very, very dangerous. That's what we are trying to explain. Most recently, in the second meeting of the Constitutional Commission, we have observed this approach of the regime. And in order to start the second meeting, they have alleged some political preconditions which had nothing to do with the Constitution. And one of them was that the opposition, that they were working together for the constitution, should be proclaimed as a terrorist organization. This is an indicator of how the regime sees the future of Syria. After that process as the guarantor countries, we have been working with Iran, and Iran has been dealing with its own problems for a long time. With Russia, we have co-signed the Sochi motion, and we have exerted efforts together with Russia. And most recently, Russia conducted some negotiations or recommendations towards the regime. And on 7th and 8th of January in Istanbul, two leaders, and before that our defense ministries and the intelligence services met and they negotiated, and we made a decision to re-establish the ceasefire in Idlib. We see there are violations, and those violations should come to an end as soon as possible. This is a must for a political solution. As for Libya, after Russia became an actor in Libya, as is similar to the case of Syria after Aleppo, there were some efforts, common efforts for a general ceasefire in Syria. We had initiated Astana initiative, and we decided to work together for a ceasefire in Libya. With the instructions of our presidents in Bratislava, in Agit Foreign Ministers meeting, we have met with Mr. Sergej Lava. So Slovakia, Mr. Ambassador is here. Slovakia is the place where the first fire was lit. And that was a very good meeting. It was the meeting of the foreign ministers of Agit. And later, two leaders agreed on the phone that we sent a delegation to Moscow from our ministry together with our Ministry of Defense and our intelligence service. They met their counterparts in Russia. They made some preparatory work, and at the end of the day, on January 8th, a decision came out of this meeting, and we have added these concrete elements to the draft, and we have shared it with the press, with Sergej Larsson. But it's not sufficient to make a declaration. We need to continue the efforts. On Monday, we decided to convene the parties in Moscow, and our duty was to contact Sarraj according to this consensus. And first, we ensured the same evening that Sarraj and his community would support this initiative, and Haftar declared his support a few weeks later, and we know how much Mr. Putin exerted efforts for this aim. First, we held a meeting, one-to-one meeting with Russia. Then Russian delegation visited Haftar, and we visited the delegation of Sarraj. And we had a draft text, and we continued negotiations. Before that, one day earlier to that, in Istanbul, our president accepted Mr. Sarraj, and there were some motions of amendment from the Haftar side, so we accepted them for reaching a consensus. Some of them were directly related with Libya. Sarraj party accepted that, and some of them were about Turkey. And we did accept them for reaching a consensus, for reaching to the signing. And after the negotiations, there were some problems about the Arabic translation of the text, and that was because Arabic language is a rich language, and in the beginning all the negotiations continued on English text so that everybody would understand, and later we decided that we should sign the English text and then the Arabic text shall be sent to the United Nations, and United Nations would do a translation of that. Sarraj accepted that, and then Russian friends came back and said that Haftar asked for a time. And we again negotiated about how to continue, and Sarraj party, we decided that Sarraj party would sign the document and hand it in to Turkey, and that's what happened at the end of the case. And before the press, we made the declarations together with Sergei Lavrov. And later, our Russian partners exerted efforts with regards to Haftar, and we know that they keep doing so. However, Haftar left Moscow without signing it. This was a disappointment indeed. I guess, and I estimate, and I observed on that day that for our Russian friends, it was a huge disappointment because they sincerely did their best and they keep doing their best. Now we understand that they're asking for 2 more days. We understand this from the declarations of the Russian side. I hope this common declaration will be signed before Berlin, and we will be more hopeful on our way to Berlin so that there will be more concrete results, such as a lasting ceasefire and then a political process. At the moment, we are not pessimistic. However, there's a fact that Haftar is not willing does not want peace. Like the Syrian regime, they don't want a political process. They want rather a military solution. For Libya, the FASO organizing any conference for involving those who did not participate in the past. Haftar attacked Trablus. That means that I don't want to share the power and the authority with nobody else, with anybody else. And there are some people, some neighboring countries who are supporting Haftar. And this approach of Haftar is the cause of this situation. In Moscow, Haftar showed that they are not ready for a ceasefire. They would rather prefer military methods. What we observe is that if the civilian war turns into a street fight inside Trablus, this would continue. Tripoli this would cause a lot of problems. Many of our sisters and brothers would die, and can even lead to the division of Libya. So we need to implement the ceasefire and revive the political process. Mr. Minister, as far as I have seen, this issue will keep the agenda busy for a while. Maybe in the Berlin summit, some developments might come up. An optimistic development might come up, but it seems that the Libya file will take a long time because we all know that it's very difficult to convene the conflicting parties. A second ceasefire was about Idlib. I would like to go deeper into your clarifications about Idlib. Recently, I have seen a difference. Our president said that if necessary, Turkey can take up a more active position about the humanitarian drama in Idlib. And if they do not obey the rules of ceasefire, they indicated that they can take a harder stand against the Assad regime. In this sense, the Turkey's policies, can it get a bit harder? Is there any change? There is a possibility that 2 or 3 millions of refugees, we know that Turkey doesn't have power to meet them. It's not desired by Turkey. Do we get the desired support from the Western world in this subject? So far, as we have done in all the developments in Syria, the recent developments in Idlib are directly influencing us and our security. In the same way, more than 400,000 people have been displaced. In our talks in Moscow and Istanbul, we have reiterated that these refugees can get back to their homes if there's a full ceasefire. We have evaluated it with the Russians, and that's a fact that 400,000 people have been displaced, and most of them are coming towards our borders. We have made some preparations, but we see that those preparations will not be sufficient. If that pressure is on our border, then there's a situation that they might come into Turkey. At the moment, we are already hosting more than 4 million refugees. It's obvious everybody knows who supports or who does not support us. We have paid more than 40 billion, and the total aid to this country from the world is not even 10% of our expenditures as a state. This is a fact. This is a burden, and we are suffering from this burden. There are so many dimensions of that. At the moment, about ceasefire on Idlib, we are being supported. Sometimes Mr. Trump is writing tweets and appreciating the efforts of Turkey, and European countries are trying to do something, are saying that they want to do something, but we should do something beyond that. We should act together. In Geneva, we have initiated a constitutional process, and a small group supported that, but this should not be limited to that. For ensuring calmness in the field, the necessary steps should be taken. If there's a huge risk to our security, we will take the steps in order to protect ourselves. This is not a threat against regime. Since the beginning, we have always defended the territorial integrity of Syria, and we are not saying so for just makeup. We have initiated the operations, or we are not saying so in order to gain time. We are indeed defending the territorial integrity and border integrity of Syria, and this territory belongs to Syria and Syrian people. And at the end of the day, if there's a threat against us, we have to take the necessary measures, and that's the message that our president has delivered. Mr. Minister, another subject is this. You have also mentioned it in your speech, this tension between America and Iran. Turkey wants to lower those tensions because, as you have stated, Iraq being a conflict zone creates a regional problem. What can Turkey do? Of course, as you have indicated, Turkey has taken up diplomatic efforts, but it seems that these tensions will continue for a while. Could you inform us more about the position of Turkey? Above all, we were against American sanctions against Iran, and when America withdrew from JCPO and COEF is the Turkish abbreviation, we didn't find it right when the Americans withdrew from that agreement. That agreement should be monitorable and transparent, and we believe that that was already transparent, and necessary the relevant agencies have declared that that was already transparent, and the European Union was supporting that, and European countries are against the American sanctions too, and those steps caused a high tension, and the Gulf countries were also influenced by those tensions. These kind of one-sided steps are wrong, and we have been reiterating that those steps are wrong to the United States. We have made initiatives for being a mediator for some negotiations between USA and Iran. It was during G20 in France, and before G20 there was some initiatives by Japan. They were intentions with goodwill. However, they didn't reach any success. It seems that Trump wants to sign his own agreement, and he has started to state it clearly recently. Secondly, there must be some starting point. But nor Iran nor United States want any mediation. Maybe they want it for the first meeting. However, afterwards they want to establish a direct dialogue. We see that America is ready for that without any preconditions. However, under the circumstances and under those sanctions, it's obvious that Iran is not ready for that. Therefore, how can that take place, and what can we do for such a mediation? In all those fields, we are not alone. We want to be together with the countries that can be effective, especially the European countries. We are thinking about it. We are exerting efforts in that regard. We will play our role. But at this point, after the killing of Qasem Soleimani, we know that that's not such easy. What should be done? First of all, we should exert efforts for lowering the tensions, and those emotions are very high between America and Iran, that they should calm down for Iran and Iraq in the same way. And after the calmness prevails, we need to sustain those efforts in a wiser way, having more common sense. I have named some countries and some international organizations, but together with everybody, we are very sincere, because what if those things aggravate, that will not be benefit to anyone. If the incidents aggravate, that will cause a harm for everybody, and we should do our best for that. Mr. Minister, those who are writing and speaking about foreign policy are trying to respond to one question, that is, Turkey and Russia have many strategic conflicts. However, despite those conflicts, they have demonstrated a significant collaboration in the recent years. In Syria, they are supporting different parties, but still they can work together. We have seen that there's a trust between two leaders. However, for long term, between Turkey and America, there is an alliance relationship under different names. However, Turkey and America cannot work together at all in this region, in this zone. There are ups and downs in the relationship between Turkey and USA, and we cannot achieve a collaboration. For example, in Libya, why does the United States not work together with Turkey? How do you respond to that question? Nice question with a long answer that requires a long time. You don't need to agree on everything with one country. You might have very serious disagreements with our neighbor Greece. Throughout the history, there are subjects that we cannot resolve. We cannot come to a settlement. However, with Greece, we are discussing every subject. We had a mechanism called exploratory talks. We are now trying to revive those exploratory talks, and we need to talk between ourselves, because we have to decide together for finding a solution to those problems. The Greek Cypriots, we do not recognize them, and it's impossible that we recognize them. However, for a lasting solution in Cyprus, we can sit around the same table. With Russia, to be frank, we did not recognize the annexation of Crimea. However, what happened in Crimea and the humanitarian situation in Crimea, we had some concerns, and then we sent a delegation. The delegation visited there and observed the violations, and we have shared our findings with Russians. Because we do not recognize the annexation, it does not necessarily mean that we will not do anything about that. It's the same about Georgia. We are a NATO ally, and we share the concerns of NATO allies, and we are evaluating them inside NATO. And despite the Cold War has come to an end, in NATO, there is a two-winged approach towards Russia. It's about deterrence and dialogue. These two should be carried on in a balanced way. At the end of the day, Russia is our neighbor. We need one and another for the trade, for the diversity of energy resources. We are working together because that's important for all the countries. Two countries, we have opened the TANAP project and Turk Stream project. Both projects have been launched in a very short duration. So these are important projects for diversifying the energy sources. However, if someone says, if you buy gas from Russia, I will implement sanctions, that would be unacceptable. On the other hand, we saw that in Syria the works are worsening. In Aleppo, people Together with Russians, we worked for 4 days for saving civilian people. So we have evacuated more than 45,000 people, and that was for saving civilian lives. And then we continued our efforts. Sochi, Astana, now it's called Nur Sultan, but the format is called Astana still. And in Geneva, in other platforms, we work together with Russia. With a neighboring country, we have to collaborate. Here, Russia, in the subjects that we disagree, we carry down our dialogue. Sometimes we were not agreeing, and about the assaulting regime, we have to be upset with Russia. So many people have been displaced in Idlib. We have to claim that. We have to say that this is not correct. About YPG, PKK, for example, in the beginning, the Russians, under the name of SDF or calling the Kurds, they made some recommendations for their participation to the political solution. There were some international Syrian support group meetings and other meetings. And our delegation, negotiation delegation, the delegation for negotiation was led by Riyad Hijab from Syria. We told them that these are terrorist organization. This is a terrorist organization. So the other part, Riyad Hijab, submitted documents to John Kerry and to our Russian counterparts and to the other people when he was prime minister and when Assad was president. He explained how they brought down the Salih Muslim from the mountain and what they did for initiating terrorist actions against Turkey. He submitted them to John Kerry himself, and Russia made these recommendations. However, he never supported those terrorists. They never gave them weapons. This is the reason why we cannot collaborate with the United States. With America, we were agreeing with America, and we were agreeing the same opinions with France as well. Concerning Syria, until 2 years ago, France was the only country where we fully agreed. However, 2 years ago, they have initiated a project of establishing a state with PKK, YPG. France started working on that. Then that was the point of separation, because that's the most important thing for us. Here, this is the reason why we cannot collaborate with the United States. In America, we try to create a safe zone upon the offer of America, and our president was talking about this safe zone since the beginning, and Trump mentioned 20 miles himself, and that would mean 32 kilometers.
And then what happened? We established a task force. Together with the task force established by the United States, we started to work together. And of course, we have to go to the field as well, but we spent our time in vain, because United States was supporting YPG at the same time, and it could not return from his faults, from his mistake. We tried the diplomacy many times. We came to the table so many times. We integrated the field and the table, and we initiated many works, and ultimately, we had to start the military movement. So the approach of the United States in this field is wrong. Of course, we are in cooperation in different fields, but because of FETÖ terrorist organization, we also have a problem of trust. FBI makes investigation in the United States, and FBI actually reveals all the bad and illegal activities of FETÖ, but the government of the states actually is not meeting our expectation about FETÖ. You know, the secret services of different countries support this organization. Sometimes, at the moment, a terrorist is extradited to Turkey. The secret services actually come to the action. They also put pressure on the courts as well. You know, in recent time, in Balkans countries, in African countries, we see these countries confess this reality? Which country's intelligence agency is putting pressure on what issue? They are confessing all these things to us. So what is the expectation of the United States? What is our need? Okay, we need to buy an air defense system, and United States says that you cannot buy it. So what is our expectation from the United States? Please meet our expectations about terrorist organization, and they don't give any weapons, any guns to the terrorist organizations in this geography. So whose expectation is much more legitimate? What do you think about that? Or which expectation is vitally significant? By the way, I'm collecting some questions from the hall, and you have already answered to a couple of them with your explanation. You mentioned about the peace movement. There are two agreements, with the United States and with Russia. What is your suggestion about the YPG issue? Were the promises given kept? We have lost 4 soldiers in the previous movement, but before that, these terrorists attacked the market fields, market areas, and to some places where people were dominantly living. And because of a couple of blasts and more than 50 civilians died. So what does it mean? So this terrorist presence is still over there, and if they don't go away, of course we will, when we see them, we will exterminate them. But of course, according to the agreement we made with Russia about the zones out of our military movement, the all YPG terrorists should go to 30 miles away from the zone we created there. And in the light of the all intelligence and the data we received, even there in the safe zone, there were some attacks, there were some explosions as well. And we are patrolling there in a regular basis with the Russian soldiers. But of course, we are so decisive about this issue, and Russia should put pressure on YPG PKK as well. If it doesn't happen, what will occur then? So we will clear the terrorist over there. It's very understandable and reasonable. So ultimately, okay, we tried this issue with the United States both in the table and in the field, and it didn't result in a way we wished, so we initiated the military movement. So that will be the same here, because this is our national security issue. Maybe for the other countries, for Syria, there may be different concerns, different issues. Or that could be a terrorist organization. They have been in cooperation so far, but this is not a simple issue for us. This is our national issue. We have to clear this area as soon as possible. It's very important for our safety and for the safety of whole region, entire region. 1,350 here, and more than 200,000 Syrian Kurdish people are living there. They could not return their homes because of these terrorist attacks. So this safe zone will give an important chance to them to return their homes. It's very important for us, and this is our important ambition, important objective, to clear the terrorists in this zone. So you cannot find any peace, stability, welfare, prosperity if there is terrorism over there. Only you see the tears. There are some questions here from hall again. From this hall or next door? I think from this hall, because there is very high interest, and would like to thank you again for being with us. This question is about Libya. involvement of the external forces in this field? Is it a solution or is it increasing the tension? Why the Libyan people assemble in different countries, capitals, not in their own country? Regarding the conflicting parties, of course, it's not physically possible for the conflicting parties to come together in their own countries. They have to come together in a third country, unfortunately. So it's not possible for Haftar to go to the Tripoli to make such negotiations. It's not realistic, of course. And the same is true for the other side. They cannot come to the table in a conflicting area. But hopefully these days will come true in the future. External supports or external countries' involvements are not proper. For example, is it right if Egypt gives a warcraft for aircraft, for example? So from the southern countries, you see many paid soldiers going there. We have military movements with the legitimate government, but what we have agreement, of course, with them, and it's also in conformance with the UN security resolution. When you look at the resolution, it says that in order to provide the stability in the country, support the national agreement government, national legitimate government, and stop your relations with the other forces, with the other countries. And similarly, Wagner is also there. Sometimes our European friends say that everything is just because of Turkey. Turkey has started everything. They are worse than our opposition, because our opposition always says that we initiated the war in Syria, we brought the migrants to Turkey. So we are single responsible for everything which is happening in Syria. Erdogan is single responsible, opposition says. And when we look at the remarks of France, they actually have always suggest oppositional text against Turkey. Why? So we can give trainings. It's in conformance with the UN resolution as well. But of course, we don't want the war to proceed. We have to take the balance in some aspects in order to stop the war. Haftar sometimes threatening our overseas ships. They are taking our citizens as hostages, so that they are becoming a danger for us. So we have to take our actions and measures, of course. But such attempts, such involvements from the third countries are harming Libya as well. It's very clear. And one reason why Haftar is believing the military movements, military solutions, this is one reason for that. Yes. You know, sometimes Turkey's the diplomatic movements are appreciated, and Turkey now uses its military forces as well. So what I understand from your verse is that the reality should be the same on the table and in the field. If necessary, you are also needed to use military force as well. So from time to time, opposition is bringing such ideas that Turkey is now following another adventure. Why do they think like that? We are not in favor of force, use of power, of course, if it's not necessary. For many years, a terrorist organization has been attacking Turkey and our people. Many soldiers, many civilians have lost because of this terrorist organization. So, if necessary, of course, we naturally use our military power. No one should get disturbed about that. If we act against PKK, people start to criticize us. If something is done against Daesh, ISIS, everyone is supporting this. So we are spending huge effort for the stability, for the peace. We have participated in all agreements, peace agreements. Syria, you know, we went to Syria, which is close to Rabat, and we attended the peace talks there, and we also wanted to engage all parties for peace, for establishing peace in Libya. We didn't make any distinction among the parties, actually. We have spent huge effort up until 4th of April. We are not in favor of use of power, of course, but if there is a threat against our national safety, so we easily can use we used to send a seismic vessel to Cyprus, but we were forced to send a drilling vessel because they don't care the Turkish Cyprus rights and the rights of Turkish Republic. Because the Greek administration doesn't recognize the Turkish Cypriots, and they don't want to make any agreement with them directly. So we suggest Europe, okay, or Greece, okay, establish an umbrella organization which regulates all these things between all parties. But they are not in favor of that. Okay, Cyprus is now a member of European Union. It's wrong. It's against the law. But you have to protect both sides' rights. And you had many promises. Okay, so we cannot explain all these things to them. So we had to send our vessel there. That's why we had to do that. But about dialogue, about mediation issue, Turkey is now becoming a brand in terms of the mechanisms we established in Caucasian countries, in Balkans, in mediation, now in UN and OSCE, together with Finland. Turkey is now important brand. We are also discussing with the Arabic countries. We are now training the mediators, so we believe the soft power. That's why we are always saying the word of humanitarian. We are now placed in the first rank in the world. This is not the figures we are explaining. This, when you look at the humanitarian organizations and when you look at their activities, we are placed in the first rank. So we pay attention to to health, to education. AFAD, the Red Crescent, Turkish Culture Center of Cultures, and the Association of Religious Affairs, and all these organizations are actively working in many countries. We are trying to teach Islam properly in order to prevent Islamic terrorist organizations attacks, or they are trying to harm the reputation of Islam over the countries. So we are actively working on many issues, about humanitarian issues, about development issues, about Islam. So thanks Allah, actually we became a brand in all these issues. This is very important issue, which is permanent. But if necessary, you have to be able to use the power, of course, in order to eradicate if there is a threat against the national stability and safety. Yes, we mentioned about some equations in foreign policy and the trade war between China and Turkey, China and the United States. So what is the place of Turkey in this? Okay, I think you're about ratifying. By the way, I'm getting colder. I'm sick. Well, what's the reason for that? Maybe because of the air condition. Not because of this tough question. So you see, if it was because of that, I would start swearing. Okay. It seems that there is a reconciliation between China and States, but the competition is also present between these two countries. What will be the position of Turkey about that? Of course, we should not support one side. because this war is affecting or will affect all of us negatively. Because we have trades with two countries, and up to what extent our trades and bilateral relations will be affected. It's uncertain, but this is very important point and concern we have. I believe that this trade war is not in favor of for the sake of two countries. So they understood this issue. Now they're talking about negotiations. We see positive signals from two countries. We have a much more balanced foreign trade with the United States, and there is a very that China could be affected in which direction, that's up to the situation, of course, and up to the movements, actions which will be taken. And the world trade should be balanced. We have bilateral trades with Korea, with some other Asian countries, because there sometimes we see huge deficits in against us, and there are also some other relations which are in favor of us. So both parties, both countries should be able to make achievements, and how we can increase the Turkish investments in those countries, how we can proceed in a balanced way. We are brainstorming together, actually. So instead of having battles, of course, we need to brainstorm together. This is a personal question of mine. This is not personal question, but we are all curious of that. As Minister of Foreign Affairs, about what topics do you take initiatives? So how and when do you take your own initiative about which topic in international arena? It depends on the situation. For example, if I'm needed to deliver a presentation, if I'm a hosting party, or if I'm a keynote speaker, of course, it depends on the situation. At the beginning, you can make some interventions, but this is an experience from the years of mine from the European Council. I observe the discussions at first glance. If the discussions are getting stuck, I try to show the reconciliation culture while discussing on the text, for example. In order to find the middle, for example, I also make some suggestions for reconciliation, and I achieve this 90%, let's say, because we have good faith. I like making constructive interventions on the issues which are stuck. I always try to be constructive, but sometimes I personally think that I'm a tough negotiator. Is it a compliment or I don't know, but yes, about Balkans, there are two questions. What about the Turkey's policies in Balkans, and how do you consider the increasing presence of China in Balkans? We have always balanced and stable Balkan policy. Especially in the East Balkans, stability is extremely important. Peace is extremely important. Dialogue is not sufficient lonely. So this is about the connectivity. Actually, we cannot find the Turkish equivalence of connectivity in the text in our ministry. When I was at university, actually, with my lecturer, we used to produce new equivalences, new words in Turkish. Maybe we need to brainstorm on that, on some terminology issues. Yes, we are spending huge effort for connectivity between the Balkan countries. We are trying, we are actually bringing huge contribution to the stability and to the trade among the Balkan states. In Serbia, for example, they have established an office for bilateral commercial activities. So it's very meaningful issue. So the integration of this region with the international arena is very important. If they can manage integrating together, so permanent peace can be constituted. In Bosnia-Herzegovina, it took so much time to establish a state there, and we spent huge effort there. Our president spent huge effort for Bosnia-Herzegovina and the other three leaders in the council. Between Bosnia and Serbia, to this morning, actually, the ambassador of Kosovo visited to me. And of course, in order to be able to fix all the problems by dialogues, we spent huge effort for these countries. We support their integration with the European Atlantic Coordination Council. We are not a European Union member, but we always support them. If you want them, you have to accelerate the integration process for these countries. NATO is fulfilling its duty. For example, Macedonia, Northern Macedonia, is now finishing its accession process. Some countries actually could not approve it from their National Assembly, but there is no problem with that. This process will be concluded. So what is the toughest thing for a nation, for a country? Changing its name. In order to be able to member to NATO, to European Union, it changed its name. But European Union even did not give a date for this negotiation. They didn't give it for Albania as well. Montenegro, after achieving its independence, in order for fulfillment of obligations against European Union, actually they made so big reforms. I closely followed this process. Now, regarding the closing and opening chapters, they're doing what's necessary. But despite all these efforts, the negotiation process is slowing down. Don't get offended, by the way. We are sincerely discussing about that. Turkey, Russia, Austria, and now China. They said that if they don't go there, they will come. So why do you consider Turkey as a competitor? Come on, and then we can make contribution together. And Russia, it's not competitor. So what can we do for the sake of these countries together? Every country, of course, can select, can identify its attitudes according to their interests. But if you're disturbed, China is coming. But what do you do? What can you do to make the China balanced? Peter is also very frank friend of mine, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Hungary. He criticized China because they are active in Hungary. But the telephone company was originally from Europe, and this company was originally from this country, and all actually were sold to China. And then he criticized, why do you allow China to come into your market? So it's very reasonable. So how can you manage this concern?
It's easy to raise the concerns and criticize it. However, do you have a policy? Do you have any solution? Let's discuss that. But Balkans, that's our approach. This is our approach to Balkans. No one is our rival. No one is our competitor. Everybody's contribution is needed, and we are doing our part. Actually, there was another question about European Union. The question is, European Union is a sine qua non for Turkey still, or as the world is going to a new way of polarization, can Turkey take care of itself? How do you see the prospect of a European Union and Turkey relationship? Now, Turkey is not a country. If you consider Turkey as if it's a country from a different continent and trying to enter Europe, that would mislead you. We are part of this continent. We are a country which unites Europe and Asia. So the stability and security of this continent is very important for us. And we are contributing a lot to the security and economic development of Europe. Turkey is one of the countries which is contributing at the highest level. The process of European Union membership is a long and tiring process for us. we have a European. I was also a European Union minister, and now we have united our forces as the Foreign Ministry and the European Union Minister. We have Reform Action Group, and we are convening more frequently. The latest gathering was presided by our president. Against PKK and against FETÖ, the attitudes of the European Union, our trust has decreased. Otherwise, if we don't say so, it would be wrong. I was in Istanbul recently. And now with Michel, we are trying to re-establish that trust. If European Union is sincere, we are already sincere. Now we are about the challenges on the way to the accession because of the political barriers. It's not because of opening or closing criteria of any chapter. We are very claiming in saying that if we cannot meet the opening criteria, do not open. If we cannot close, do not close. But apart from that, don't put any political barriers. However, now we are coming across with political barriers. Now, Moscow has some ideas. They are trying to be the leader of Europe and the region, and now there are different interesting ideas about membership and about the negotiations. That's the reason why the negotiations with Montenegro have slowed down. If we cannot take a step instantly now about accession, or if there will not be any proceeding, can we take steps in other fields? Yes, we can do. Updating the customs union, its benefit to everybody. And free visa freedom is a promise, and we are doing our homework. We want nothing without anything in return. In similar areas, including the migration issue, there are some subjects we should take steps together. So we should do so. We should do so. Now I'm saying something very important. Turkey or any other country, including Balkan countries, if they say, I don't want membership, I only want updating of customs union and free visas, visa freedom. If they want something apart from the accession and membership, I'm 100% sure that European Union would oblige more heavier conditions than the conditions on the way to the accession. That's the situation of European Union. I'm not trying to criticize the European Union. I'm not saying so. I'm not talking as a foreign minister. I'm talking as a Turkish and European citizen. These are my sincere beliefs. And if you say, I don't want membership but customs union, they would bring the same criteria for the customs union. That understanding is changing. European Union should come up with a decision. They should get out of this time of being non-decisive. In this era, in the region, European Union needs to be a regional actor, strong regional actor. It has not become a global actor, and I'm not the reason why the European Union could not become a global actor. Now we are still carrying our goal of membership. But if we make a referendum today, I don't know if Turkish people would say yes or no. I'm not sure what Turkish people would say. With the questions, it's like a foreign policy tour. There's a question about Caucasia. It's criticized that Turkey's policies about Caucasia is weak. What would you say in this subject? To be honest, I would respect to the person whomever asked the question, but I do think the other way around. In Caucasia, our triple and four-sided mechanisms are very effective. At the moment, our relationships with Georgia are very well, and we can travel without even a passport. With ID cards, our citizens can travel to Georgia. Our investments, our trades are going up day by day. And if you talk about Northern Caucasia, then there is Russia, and we have already discussed our relationship with Russia. Is it necessary to explain our relationships with Azerbaijan? However, in Caucasia, let's look at the concrete steps apart from the politics. We have opened TANAP. Baku-Tbilisi Kars railway. Now, in order to increase the capacity of passenger and freight, three countries are working together and it's being accelerated. In the same way, there were other energy corridors. The other Central Asia connection to this region, to Turkmenistan and railway, and in the same way, Shah Deniz project. So it's not only about a fraternity bond or friendship bond. We are taking concrete steps. In Caucasia, our collaboration is stronger than anywhere else. If they mean Armenia, the reason, we can discuss the reason very long, but for our side, it's very simple. They might be right. Armenia, if they give up the territory they invaded, and if we solve the Karabakh problem with our contribution, that missing part would also be put in place, and that would be to the benefit of Armenia. But in Azerbaijan, 7 regions they are invading, including Karabakh. So this is not possible. Armenia should understand, and it's important to start from one point. And we are exerting efforts for starting from somewhere. However, our brother Azerbaijan's attitude is a basic criteria. But now, with all the corridors, we are combining Central Asia and even the Northern Caucasia. Now, this place has become the hub of the Belt and Road project of China. Our relationships with Caucasia, in terms of one-to-one relationships or the regional relationships, our relationships are not weak. Recently, we were in Georgia for organizing Turkey-Azerbaijan meeting. We are meeting at the level of trade ministers, foreign ministers, energy ministers, and our relationships are very well. It is going to be even better, and we are planning to have better relationships with all of the regions. Mr. Minister, let's take last two questions. One of those questions is about Libya again. It's written in English. The summary is Haftar in Moscow did not sign the ceasefire and he left. What's the reason behind it? And what will be the future of this task? What will happen next? And about Turkey, Russia, and Algeria contributions to this solution of this problem was reminded inside the question. Why did Haftar leave the table? We didn't have any direct contact with Haftar. Our main plan was this. First, we would talk all together. Then, together with Saraj delegation as the legitimate administration, and then Haftar delegation, we would talk together as Russian and Turkey delegations. And if both parties were ready to sign, we would have a common all-together meeting. We would have a dinner, and Russia had prepared a nice program as the host. They prepared the program, and we have approved the schedule. Haftar, since the beginning, does not believe in a political solution. He doesn't want to share the power. That's the problem. The Saraj part, however, Saraj side wants to share the power with Haftar and others. And that's why they supported the conference. Recently, Qassam Selami's special representative offered that 3 committees should be established. One was military. One of those committees was military committee. Another was economics committee. What was the other, Mr. Ambassador, Political committee. Saraj part side sent their members instantly to those commissions. However, Haftar did not. This is actually an indicator that they don't want a ceasefire or a political process. Which countries are supporting Haftar? Egypt and United Arab Emirates. And Moscow, there were representatives from those countries. We did not see them, and it's impossible that they can attend meetings with us. I don't know how positively or negatively they affected Haftar. Our Russian friends will respond to this question. However, I believe that those who are supporting Haftar militarily in terms of weapons don't want peace and stability. And in Libya, those countries, including Yemen, including some African countries, they want instability and chaos in the region, and they are the reasons of this chaos and instability in the region. Look at them. We have all. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of weapons, they are all for instability in the region. For example, in Sudan, when the balance is disturbed, it does not get proper again. Sudan is a sister country for us. Since the beginning, we have been talking about Sudan people, sister people, and the stability in the Sudan. We don't support any parties. In Yemen, Houthis. Who supported Houthis in the beginning? United Arab Emirates supported them. Why? Because they wanted them to wage a war against Ikhwan and Muslim Brothers. And Iran was also supporting them. Then Muslim Brothers said, we are a political movement, we don't make any war, and they withdrew to the rural part, and with that support, they have gained power in everywhere. Then they set up a coalition for cleaning the Houthis. Then hundreds of people died out of hunger. There was a disaster. Later, we understood that their wish was to establish a microstate there, to divide Yemen. So they say, we have money and we have power, we can do whatever we want, and we can do everything. They will understand that they will not be able to do everything they want. We are very clear about that. This will not continue as like this. Was it too honest? Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. The last question is also about the Eastern Mediterranean, because that's one of the subjects that will keep going. Why did Turkey? Okay, on one side, Turkey is showing the hard power. They are decided, and but on the other hand, they give priority for diplomacy. Why doesn't Turkey make a more active search, like Israel and other countries? What's the goal of Turkey in Eastern Mediterranean? Our clarification is clear and obvious. With the exception of the Greek Cypriots, we are ready for collaborating with everybody. Everybody. Is there anything more than that? For example, with Israel, like we have signed with Libya, we cannot sign a maritime jurisdiction agreement like we did with Libya, because there are some conditions of that in the international maritime law, because we don't have direct we cannot see two countries. But what can there be? There's a project called ISMET. The resources in that region, they are transferred to the international market. There will be a pipeline, and that pipeline will go from the continental shelf of Turkey. While it's transiting the continental shelf of Turkey, Israel and other countries should take consent from Turkey. Then we can have an agreement. However, we cannot make a maritime jurisdiction a memorandum of understanding. We cannot do that. But in the future, it can be done together with Egypt or with Greece. Our president said this to Mitsotakis in London. He said, our president said that we are ready for collaboration with you as well. But these kind of countries are trying to exclude Turkey. The Greek Cypriots have signed similar agreements with those countries. And recently, Greek Cypriots, Egypt, and Israel, 4 countries, are taking many initiatives for excluding Turkey, despite all of our warnings. Sevilla map, this and that. They are trying to imprison Turkey at its border, even beyond the continental shelf. We only had some maritime jurisdiction near Antalya, and that would be all. Even on our territorial water, they were even trying to put us behind our territorial water. Okay, we are ready for diplomacy, and what we are doing is diplomacy itself. We did not sign a forced agreement. We signed an agreement with the legitimate government because they can sign a memorandum of understanding. I'm talking about the national consensus government. The ambassador is here. So in this framework, this national consensus government, EU, USA, so they already signed similar memorandum of understandings with the EU and other countries. What we did is legitimate, and we have signed this MOU in a legitimate way. And we are ready for coming to agreement with other countries. What is the main point is this: we should share. We will learn how to share. Greek Cypriots will learn it, and all the others will learn how to share. Then we all will win, and everybody will be in peace. That's the essence of it, and we are ready for that. Mr. Minister, at the end of an intensive marathon, which ended up in a peaceful way, hopefully you are not very much exhausted. I'm very thankful to you for allocating time for us in a very busy schedule. Dear guests, I would like to please join me in thanking Mr. Cavusoglu for allocating time for us in their busy schedule. I do thank you to SETA and to all participants. It was a very efficient and fruitful meeting. Thank you very much. Hopefully you didn't get a cold. Now we are going to give you a gift.